So after 5 months of planting all of these beautiful annuals and perennials, it's finally time for our first garden tour of the year. And there are so many beautiful things blooming. I can't wait to share with you what we have going on in our garden. Stick around. So I usually end the garden tour in this area of our yard. This is really the only shade garden that we have in our whole space. And I love how these colors really work together. Over the past couple of years, I've been adding coleus into this hydrangea garden, and I really like the contrasting colors with the hydrangeas. I don't see a lot of people doing that, but I really like how it turned out. And these really nice, smooth hydrangeas have gone through their bloom cycle. Their blooms have changed a lot over the past couple of months since they started blooming at the beginning of the summer. They were really pretty early for us this year, but I love how they get speckled and they turn green after they're a really nice pink color. They're pink where we are. This one was a gift a long time ago from my mother-in-law, and I planted this in probably about 10 years ago, and I wanted to match that with this one, and I found the exact same variety, and it's doing really well. This one was a gift and it's doing beautifully, but I really think what sets this whole area apart are the coleus right here in the front, and that chartreuse color that is in contrast with the really deep, rich color of the hydrangea leaves is just really beautiful. I love that. I've never had that variety before, and I think it's perfect right there. And again, the hydrangeas really do need some protected shade to not burn because they're not full sun hydrangeas, so this is a perfect spot for them. And then the coleus can be either in sun or shade, and so they do really well here as well. So you have that beautiful lime color or chartreuse color of those leaves contrasting against the really nice hydrangea right here. And then I popped in this El Brido coleus, and man, that thing is so beautiful. Such different colors, and those variegated leaves, there's so many different colors in all of those leaves. I just really like it. It just kind of pops in this spot right here. And it's something that most people probably wouldn't put in an area like this, but I think it works really well. And it does soften the whole look of this flower bed rather than just having this simple hydrangeas right here. I shouldn't say simple, they're beautiful, but rather than having three, it's nice to have something else growing in this area too. And then I have this really cool mini-me chartreuse right here, and it is like a small shrub. Beautiful. And so you tie in both sides with that chartreuse color. Even though they're two different styles, I really like it. It's just an experiment for me. I bought this year, where I ordered it, and it's really pretty, and I think this whole area really looks nice. One of my favorite parts, because we don't have a lot of shade where we are, so the whole backyard is pretty much full sun. This area gets a little bit of sun this time of year when the sun is more directly over this area. It gets a little bit of sun, but it's not enough to burn this area, so it looks really nice. And I think I am going to keep planting these coleus here every year, maybe some different varieties, but I think it's really pretty. Now, moving on over to this bed right here, these huge beds that we have. I recently came through and cut back my Surefire white begonias all the way down to the ground. And this is probably the 7th time I've done that. Over time, they get a little bit of a mildew once they get fully developed. And when the seasons transition from either spring into summer or summer into fall, sometimes they get really leggy. And so they just really work well here, and they look beautiful. And when I give them a full shear back, they come back for me every time. Here in our area, we don't really have harsh winters, so they're definitely a perennial, and they just keep coming back and coming back. And I'm really happy with this annual. It is such a great, stout, sturdy plant, and they come back every year. I don't have to buy any new things for this spot, and eventually over time they're going to fill in this whole area and be full of that really nice white bright bloom. My camellia did really well this year, full of blooms, and now it's pushing more of its growth. I don't need to trim that back at all, but that is really pretty. I really like the Rockapulco red double impatiens in that pot right there. I planted that probably about a month and a half ago, and it's done really well, completely mounded, full of blooms. The only thing that people really need to know when they're planting impatiens is they do drop their blooms. So if you don't mind the mess on the ground, I just blow those off every so often. With me, I don't mind it. I just brush them off or rinse them down, or I have a blower that I blow them off, and it's totally fine. But they are so beautiful, and I love the color because I try to bring all of these colors together, other than the hydrangea garden right here. That's a little bit different. But that is really nice. Now, the Broalia that I found this year at one of my local retailers or garden centers, it's still hanging on, but it's a little bit spindly. A couple white blooms here and there, but this Acapulco Impatient really has taken over the whole spot, and I don't mind at all. So if I get a white bloom here and there, there's another one on the other side, it's fine. It gives a little bit of a contrast, and it ties in the white of the Surefire white begonias right down here at the bottom. So that's a win for sure. Really quick, and I know I've said this before, and if you're watching my channel for the first time, one thing that I've noticed about impatiens is you don't want to fertilize them too much. They can use a little bit of water-soluble fertilizer here and there, but when I plant them, I like to give them a little bit of plant tone at the beginning when I plant them, because if you fertilize them too much, you start to get bugs, spider mites in particular. It really kind of zaps the whole plant. So really hold back on that fertilizer, because if you want to have great success, then it's not needed. They kind of are a one and done plant, which I really like. Low maintenance, and they look beautiful. So we have our Japanese boxwoods right here doing super nicely. And in between each one of these Japanese boxwoods, I have more of those Surefire white begonias, really nice. Over here too, as well. And then these really beautiful shade containers right here, I'm gonna let Ben get over on the other side, have turned out so beautifully. Look at how much they've grown since I planted them originally. So I was really surprised about how these hippo plants have done so well, because they really are more of a house plant and they don't like to be in the direct sun. So the fact that these do get a little bit of sun in the late afternoon and they have survived that really has impressed me, and they have done extremely well. I might come through and trim them back just a little bit, but every single one of those plants that I planted in here look beautiful. This gorgeous red, double red begonia is just all throughout. It's hanging over the side. It's almost trailing. It's trailing over the back. It's definitely healthy throughout the whole thing, but it's dwarfed in comparison to the hippo plant. The white hippo with the pink, and then I have all different kinds of varieties in here, and they look so fantastic. And then to counteract the height of this beast of a plant right here, that creeping Jenny coming down in the front is just so beautiful. It is really, really nice, and both of those in both pots have done a fantastic job. This shade container probably is my most successful one that I've ever planted before. This creeping Jenny is super full right here. No matter where you put it, if you have it in the shade, you're going to get more of this chartreuse green color, and maybe even a deep green. And if you have it in the sun, it kind of turns golden. So it's interesting. It's kind of like light sensitive. And with the coleus as well, if I had those coleus in full sun, their color variations would be a little bit different based on the sun conditions. So it's interesting to see these plants that are great in sun or shade. And it really does kind of frame the whole front porch. The red goes really well with our red door. The white of the hippo plant brings that white together that you're going to see as we go further into our front flower bed. And the red really does bring it all together. I love it. So every year I get really excited about our front flower bed. It starts with our tulips that we plant, and then once those tulips have finished, then it's time to start thinking about annuals. And the annuals that we plant in here every year have done a miraculous job and have really been super powerhouses, bringing us color all through the season. Now this year I was really late getting my annuals planted after my tulips were finished, and that was partly because I had so many planting projects. I had a lot going on with work, but when I eventually did get these in the ground, I was so happy because they look great, and I couldn't have planned it out any better, starting with this beautiful Supertunia Vista Silverberry. What a workhorse this is. And this is really amazing because when I planted these in here, they were really stressed. They had been in their containers for way too long, probably about a month longer than I usually take to get them in the ground, but I gave them the trim back. They were rather leggy. They had some dead branchings, but they have bounced back beautifully. I gave them some water-soluble fertilizer, a little bit of plant tone when I planted them, and they have really popped. You can see how they're just shining all the way down my flower bed right here. They look fantastic. So the only thing that I do with my petunias, and I'll talk about this more when we get to the backyard, is I want to make sure that I preventively spray them for pests like budworms. Budworms are a really big problem where we are. If you don't have problems with budworms, that is a blessing, because here, if we let them go too long, they could decimate all of our blooms. They won't kill the plant, but you won't have any blooms. And if they go without having that preventative spray, then it's not long before there's an issue. So I've done that every week or so, sometimes every 2 weeks, but I can tell when I'm going to have an issue or if I've gone too long, because I start to get those little tiny holes in the bloom heads. And when I see that, I got to get it sprayed immediately, because if I don't, then everything that I've worked so hard for will be decimated in a matter of no time. So Super Petunia Vista Silverberry, so beautiful. It has a silverish hue to that white color, and those throats that vein inward have kind of like a berry color, which really does tie in the colors of everything else in here, particularly the Super Bina Red. What a vibrant red color. It's a true red, and from afar when they're in full bloom, man, I'm telling you, it just pops. These two contrasting colors really do enhance each other's beauty when they're planted next to each other like this. I could have come in here with all red, and that would have been beautiful, but it wouldn't look as standout if I didn't have colors that were contrasting. So I tend to do that every single year. This is probably one of my favorites. It's a lot more bold than we usually plant in here. Last year we had soft pastels. I had the pink cashmere along with the saffron finch, and that was beautiful. But this is probably one of my favorites. And when the roses are in full bloom, these are white iceberg roses, this whole area just really, really shines. Now the Super Bina Red is really pretty much low maintenance. The only thing that I notice after they've been in the ground for a long time, sometimes I tend to get aphids. So I will just spray them with just a little bit of neem max oil, and that takes care of it immediately. Aphids, in comparison to a lot of the pests that I get in my yard, are pretty easy to take care of. And I notice that neem oil really does take care of the issue if it does happen. So I kind of, before they get too out of control, I kind of preventively spray everything, and that's how I get longevity out of my plants, by doing that. And so the two different products that I use over time, it's not constant, but as I see or as needed, is neem oil for those Super Bina, and then every 2 weeks or maybe every week, depending on the issues that I see, is the BT or Captain Jack's dead bug that I use for the petunias. But other than that, it's pretty low maintenance. They are absolutely beautiful. They would be a lot bigger than they are now. This is pretty much the end of July, and usually by now it's pretty filled in, but they'll get there. There's still plenty of time in our growing season. I think they're going to be great. Now these white iceberg roses are fantastic. They've done a great job every single year for me. I've just noticed here recently that I'm starting to get a little bit of a iron deficiency. So I've come through with a little bit of chelated iron, and I've treated them, and that usually takes care of the problem really, really quickly. So I've done that, and I think in no time I'm going to be back to the green. It's a little bit light with the leaves, but eventually they're going to be fantastic. Now the Gara that's in here, this is another beautiful perennial that is really a workhorse in this garden. I've cut it back 3 times now. It was beautiful this spring, just kind of like blowing in the wind, really setting off the whole space, but it got a little bit leggy, a little bit stringy. I noticed that was a little bit of mildew on the ends, so I just chopped it down to about, I think that's about 8 inches. And right now they're full of new growth, so they're going to bounce back beautifully, and I love how that looks. And when everything is blooming, I'll make sure to give you an update. All right, now down here I have a lot of things that are new to the garden, starting with my delphiniums. I have planted different various delphiniums on either side. They were just a small little 8-inch container, and they've done really well. They've been blooming. I've been cutting them when they're done, and they keep shooting back new growth. That is fun to see. And then I have my foxglove, which they had a pretty big bloom that was about this high When that was done, I cut that back and it keeps shooting blooms a lot shorter, but just as beautiful. I love that foxglove. I have these varieties in the front yard, especially the foxglove, because we have a dog in the backyard and they are poisonous. So make sure if you're planting foxglove that it's not going to harm any of your pets, or it's in an area where your pets can't get to them. Our dog is pretty good about staying out of the beds, but just as a precaution, I want to make sure it's here. And anytime I cut it back, I make sure to wash my hands. I'm sure it's totally fine, but yeah, just be cautious about that. They are absolutely beautiful, and these perennials will be coming back next year, which I love that. Now, this really beautiful dahlia is interesting. I planted this probably about 4 years ago, and the first 2 years it came back really strong. Last year it was just a couple twigs, very, very weak. And for some reason this year it came back with a vengeance. So whatever I did, maybe fertilize this area, I really love that. And look at the size of those blooms. It almost looks like a sea anemone. The different really pretty cream that's more towards the center. It kind of has like a greenish yellow, cream, white. It's really beautiful. I had to stake it up a little bit, but it's really happy. And when these blooms are all done, I'll probably come by and cut those and deadhead that a little bit, but it's full of blooms and looks really beautiful here. It especially looked gorgeous when the Gara was at full height. It kind of didn't look so sparse in this area, but before long, it'll be beautiful again, and it'll be really a pretty backdrop for the whole space. I love having that height over here. It kind of seems a little bit out of place, but with the delphiniums you have the height, and it kind of gradually trails down to the lower plants right here. And when those roses are in bloom, they'll be a lot higher and it'll seem a lot more balanced for sure. And then the boxwoods. You guys know that if you've been watching me a long time, I love the boxwoods. I just love that framework in the garden because it really is something that really makes those annuals pop. If you have that gorgeous green structure and you have the free like form plants that are just kind of like the Gara or the delphiniums or the foxgloves along with the roses, you just need that structure, and it really does make everything look so fantastic. It's kind of like the frame to a beautiful painting. Love those things. These are so easy with their maintenance. I just come by and trim them. This one is almost finding its full round shape here, which in a matter of probably another, I don't know, season or two, it's going to be just like the other ones. I planted this way later than the other ones, but I figured I needed something on this end to kind of ground the space and kind of give it a little bit of balance. So I'm glad I planted this. Really easy to take care of, highly recommended. These are awesome. Let's go to the backyard. So the first thing that you notice when you come through our gate into our backyard is this hanging basket that is followed by all the rest of the hanging baskets hanging down the back side of the house. This is on the east side of the house, and these are beautiful. I have some new ones that I recently planted, but this one is probably one of my favorites. I love the color of this double yellow, and this thing is so hardy, you guys. I trimmed it all the way back to basically the sticks right over the top severely last season, and it's come back beautifully, and it is absolutely full of those vibrant yellow blooms. Just really a powerhouse. I love the look of the yellow blooms with the deep, rich color of the foliage there. It really does pop. And this light color, in comparison to what I have growing, I have a light colored container here, a dark, a light, and a dark, really does set off the whole back of the yard. This double yellow was new about 2 years ago, and it has been a workhorse in our yard. Very low maintenance. I've just done a little bit of the maintenance that I've done on my petunias in the front. These also need to get sprayed with either BT or Captain Jack's, and that really does take care of the budworm issue that really do plague here in this area anyways, petunias and super bells. This Calibrachoa is one of my favorites, so fantastic. And last season it was all the way down to here. The only reason why I cut it so severely is because we had a windstorm and I had a kind of a lightweight chain up holding it up to the eaves there, and it busted and it fell, and so it needed to be trimmed because it was really severely damaged. So it was a perfect time to trim it all the way back, and I'm really glad it came back. Beautiful plant, love that thing. So now we have down here my sun impatiens, which really do well. They are a little bit wilty right now because the sun is quite intense, but they pop back every single afternoon once they get in the shade. Even though they're sun impatiens, they do wilt a little bit. Every afternoon they pop back beautifully and they're getting ready to bloom and they're going to be fine. So I'm really happy with those. I have a caladium coming back there at the bottom. Those are perennials for us. I had another one on the other side. It hasn't came back yet. So if it does, it doesn't. No big deal. This is beautiful. I love how that really electric pink looks with that caladium. So that's going to be a really cool thing to see grow over time. These tower boxwoods are some of my favorite things that we've had in this small bed here. I really like the structure of those, just like the ones in the front, and they really are low maintenance. I did have an issue with spider mites a couple of years ago, but when I came through with a little bit of that neem max oil, it took care of it and they are just fine. They're doing great and they're really low maintenance, and they don't really grow very vigorously. I only need to trim them once a year in comparison to my other boxwoods that I have to trim twice a year. These are just a once a year thing, and I really enjoy that because low maintenance is always a good thing. All right, right here above me, I had before that blue vein petunia that kind of fizzled out after 4 years of being in our yard, and I recently replanted this pot with this beautiful double ruby calibrachoa, and it was also stressed. I had taken a long time to get them in their container, but it is full of blooms, full of new growth, looking really happy, and that beautiful deep rich red burgundy color really does go really well with the double yellow, and then also the window box or window basket behind me with those double begonias over there. So beautiful. I have the double primrose and then also the apple blossom, and they have really taken off. You can tell in this area how the foliage is so much more healthy than when I originally planted it a couple of weeks ago. It loves that spot, and like I said in that video, these begonias say they need full sun, but here we get a lot of really intense sun, and so if they get a little bit of reprieve in the late afternoon, then they do really well for us, and they haven't burned at all. In fact, they're blooming more so than ever. They have it's actually full of buds there, and it loves that spot, and it definitely loves being on drip because it doesn't ever dry out, just like any of my other containers in the backyard. So the double ruby along with the double begonias right here, and then of course this ever classic in everybody's garden, the super tunia Bordeaux. I have so many different varieties. I had to think about that for a second, but yeah, Bordeaux is beautiful, and this is doing great right here, and before long it'll be covering this area, hiding our air conditioning unit. This self-watering container is one of my favorite things that we've purchased because it does cut down on the amount of water that I'm having to do every week, only once a week. Even in the hot sun, it does really well. I probably should come by and give it a little bit of water soon because it's been a while. Now I really like this strawberry drop coleus right here and how it looks in this terracotta pot that I've had for a long time. I have a little bit of moss growing on it. I love the worn look of how it has kind of aged over time. And of course, coleus, this one in particular, and all of the ones actually that I put into my yard can do well in sun or shade, and it definitely loves the spot. So that is a win for sure. I really like how you have that dark colored center and just a little bit of a pinkish like purple in the middle there with the chartreuse edging. Really an interesting coleus. I had the chocolate drop for a long time. I've done that a number of years, but never the strawberry drop, and I really like it. I think it looks really nice in this worn terracotta pot right here. So that looks great. I have my amaryllis here doing really well with their foliage, and I probably should come through and trim back some of those dead leaves, but it's pretty healthy. And then my gosh, you guys, I love these urns and how they've grown over the season. I had a loss with the other one, and I'll explain that in a second, but this classy carmine dahlia is beautiful. It has grown so much taller than I originally intended it to do, which it's fine. It is absolutely full, and I still have the white salvia that's new this year, so pretty, coming through there along with my beautiful super bells. So pretty. I love these containers, and I was really happy with how they developed over time. I have a little bit of footage from a couple weeks ago, not a couple weeks ago, last week actually, when they are really in their heyday, and I'll cut away to that right now. But guys, this dahlia is super hardy. The only issue that I've seen is a little bit of mildew here and there. But again, that neem oil that I was talking about before, I just hit it with a little bit of that and it zapped it before it got out of control. So you may want to watch that. This is in a place of the yard where it gets late afternoon shade. The dahlias do really well in full sun, and maybe if I had in full sun all day long, I wouldn't have had that issue. But it hasn't been something that's really taken over the plant, and it's really been fine. So they just keep blooming and blooming. I have a lot of spent blooms here. They don't really bother me because they still have that deep, rich color. So it's totally fine. But man, when they open and you have so many of those new blooms, it is stunning. I'm really happy with the way they look. And even though I painted those containers black, you can't really tell because they drape over the side. You can't even see the container barely. But this one was a loss, unfortunately. A couple of weeks ago, I was trying to figure out why this whole plant actually had been dying, because it looked like it needed water. It was wilting over and over again. And I thought, why is that one fine and this one not so much? Usually when a plant dies, one of the plants will die, but the whole container was really suffering. And then I got down here and I started smelling around. I think it's because we were spraying sunscreen in this spot, and a little bit of the sunscreen overspray ended up on the plant and really choked out the leaves. And so I was forced to cut it all the way back. I'll probably trim that one back in about a week or so, but I trimmed it all the way back, but it is coming back. I have new growth on the dahlias, I have new growth on the salvia, and definitely the super bells. I knew they weren't going to have any problem being cut back because I cut those back all the time and they do great. All of my super bells do great with trim back, so I wasn't worried about that. But since the dahlias were new for me, I was a little bit worried. So I'm glad to see that maybe I will get a second flush of growth from this container that will hopefully last through the fall, because guys, what a beautiful annual. I would highly recommend the Classy Carmine Dahlia. Love that color, and I think they're gonna be okay. All right, it was hard to do that, but we're good. All right, so in this little tiny flower bed here, I have more of the mini-me chartreuse, and then some snapdragons that I have grown from seed that I just kind of popped in there because we didn't really have a lot of room, but I thought that'd be kind of cool. So I love how that looks. And then this hanging basket, I mean, how magnificent are the blooms on this Calibrachoa? This is a new variety for us, not a new variety for proven winners, but for us it was. I found this early in the season, way back in February. This is Super Bell's Honeyberry, and guys, look at that. So pretty. You have that light pink, you have that yellow center. I originally planted some Nemesia, some yellow Nemesia, lemon Nemesia in the center, but this thing is so vigorous, it took over the whole thing and kind of choked out the Nemesia, which is fine. It was pretty while it lasted, but man, an amazing workhorse. And it has looked like this basically the whole time that it's been in here. From the moment it started trailing over the side to today's video, it has been blooming and blooming and blooming just like this. I love that plant. This is a great one, guys. So if you haven't tried Honeyberry, you may want to try this because it's a high recommend for sure. Everybody that comes back here always talks about how beautiful it is, and I agree, definitely. I tend to focus a lot on double Calibrachoa, but this one, guys, beautiful. All right, so these containers, look at how they've grown over, really, I think it's been about 2 or 3 weeks. I found these containers at IKEA on clearance, and then I planted them up with some new annuals that I found at a local nursery. This is the Sunbeanie Creeping Zinnia. Never seen that before. Guys, it's fantastic. Nothing seems to bother this, and it does really well. I think it kind of gives it a really nice farmhouse look. You have the really pretty Angelonia, the angel face pink, which is new for this season. And I thought, you know, this is really a different combination. I've never put anything like that together, but I think it really does look great with that black container, that metal container. It looks fantastic. This angel face Angelonia looks really nice with the over easy super bells there in the front. And again, this was super stressed when I planted them in their containers for way too long, and they're coming back beautifully. It seems like once I got these in their containers, they immediately found the strength to just really explode in bloom, and they have done that. So on this angel face pink Angelonia, I have the pink blooms, but right in the center of the same stem, I have this purple flower that probably is the original color before they cultivated the pink color. I don't know. This is really something that I've never seen before, but it's really, really neat. And it kind of looks like I have two different varieties planted in here, but it's really one plant. Never seen that happen before. How cool is that? Love that. I have some impatiens that are growing in my crack down here, which is so crazy to see. I mean, it's better than a weed, and it does seem to be happy, so I just kind of leave it there. All right, so this container, this one I had replaced a couple weeks ago when I put in the other double ruby, and it really does tie in the colors of the double ruby that I have over there, along with the vintage coral, which is on the fence on this side in our vertical garden there. But again, these plants were super stressed. Once I got them in here, they were really happy with the new soil. I gave them a little bit of plant tone, slow release fertilizer from Proven Winners, and a douse of water soluble fertilizer, and they're looking beautifully. Just the amount of growth that I've seen in a very short amount of time is really remarkable, and they're full of blooms. Definitely a big upgrade to what I had in here. I had some sparkling amethyst verbena in here, and I don't think I'm going to be planting verbena in these hanging baskets because they're not in the sun long enough for those plants. And I had a little bit of a whitefly issue, and so it was really zapping that plant over and over again. So it was time for it to come out and start with something fresh. I have a new cocoa liner in here so that it's not diseased from the previous plant that was up here, but I definitely got my good out of that last plant, and I was happy with it. But it was great to start with this. And how pretty is that? Look at that, those beautiful colors and how they work together. The double coral or vintage coral really is unique. I've never seen a calibrachoa that color before, and it really does work well with the burgundies of the other plant. Super pretty. Now we have our ficus tree here that's done remarkably well over these years. It's really, really old, and it seems to be doing fine. I had to move it from this spot because we're going to have some solar panels installed on our house, and they need this area cleared. So in order to make sure that that's available for them, we moved it over here. But my boxwoods, look at these boxwoods. Remember how out of control they were? If you've been watching me for a while, you know that they were as tall as the fence. And last year I came through and gave them a severe, severe cutback, and I've trimmed them back a couple times since then. They're probably going to need another trim. I kind of like the woolly look of them right now, but I don't want to trim them in the middle of the summer because they might get a little bit burned. They probably do fine, but at the end of the summer, I'm definitely at the beginning of the fall going to give them a nice shaping, but they turned out great, and I'm so happy with them. Again, boxwoods, such a workhorse in the garden, giving you that beautiful structure. I love that. I have some James Britannia that I planted down here on the bottom. This is, I think, the Safari Sky variety. I'm pretty sure it is. And then I have some violas that have come back volunteer just from seed. I also have some Lobellaria coming back. Behind that, I have some more of that petite pink Gara coming back, and before long, it's going to be a really nice pop of color right there, kind of softening this space. More of the over easy super bells. Guys, this was so stressed, looking terrible in its container before I planted it. Once I planted it, look at how green that is, full of new blooms. So healthy, full of new growth. Love that. I have this container here, which is kind of tired, which I didn't expect it to do this well this long. We've had some pretty warm days. We've had some really cool days, and I think that has really sustained it. I still have pansies blooming at this time of year, which is remarkable. This is the container that I bought from a thrift store that I planted a couple months ago, or early in the season, with the dianthus and the marigolds with the ivy, and then the pansies, done really well. It's getting a little bit tired. I'll probably take out in a number of weeks, trim back the dianthus, plant them in the landscape, and then take everything else out, and then maybe replant that container soon. We'll see. And then behind this right here, I have this Holy Moly variety of super bells. Again, loving its new container, doing really well, full of new growth. And then the containers on the walls, guys, how pretty is that? They look so nice. This double vintage coral looks so pretty when you have it placed on the wall with the double ruby superbells right there. I love those two colors together. They look really elegant and classy, and the black pots were a definite win in my opinion. But before long, these are going to eventually cascade completely over. You won't see those black pots, but in the meantime, it really does give it a great look. I love how all of that color is really set off by all of the green of the boxwoods and then Ben's corn right here. It just really, really looks nice all together. Now this Chrysler Imperial Tea Rose is beautiful and it's going through one of its bloom cycles, but like my other plants, it did get a little bit anemic, and so I gave it a little bit of chelated iron, and it seems to be helping, and I'm sure it's going to be great in a matter of no time. Now down here in front, I have more of the Sunbeanie Creeping Zinnia. Also, I have some English lavender that is probably my favorite lavender that I have in the yard. I have some French lavender that's beautiful, but I really like this because even when the bloom heads are spent, they kind of keep their color and it doesn't seem to bother me. I have a little bit of that lemon nemesia still hanging on that I originally planted in this pot, and I think it looks great. I love how like loose and wispy the whole container is. It's not super formal, but it is nice and bright, and I love those colors together. Lavender and yellow always look great. I have some really pretty variety of lantana here that I'm going to plant soon. I also have those containers that I planted early in the season. This is the Tropical Sunrise Superbells here that I planted in those trash cans that I found from IKEA. I was originally going to put them over by my back sliding glass door, but I thought it'd be really cool to kind of pair them with the boxwoods since I had underplanted those with the same plant. I think it really is a nice pairing. I have my fountain right here. I've had Superbells that are a lot more wiry than these are, and these seem to be really dense. Sometimes when your supertunias start to kind of like grow, they get really heavy in the center and then they'll flop and you'll have like a bare spot. But these seem to be really, really sturdy. I haven't had any flopping with these, and they're really, really kind of like firm all the way around. Really, really a nice plant. I would highly recommend that one. So if you haven't tried that variety, it's a winner for sure. Now, as we come around this area, I have my miniature buddleia right here, which is doing great. I got to find a spot for that, but it's growing beautifully, attracting butterflies every so often. I love that. That'll get in the ground soon. But we have our raised beds right here, along with those beautiful Superbells. They look fantastic. But look at this. This is just like going absolutely berserk. This is a really cool variety of russet potatoes that is just going crazy. I came through and I added a little bit of a fencing to kind of keep it up. This way, the front part of this bed, we could underplant with some green beans, and they're doing beautifully right here. I'm so happy with how all of these look together, and this really brilliant show of green is fantastic. One thing that I've noticed though here is I have a little bit of a worm issue. They kind of have been eating off the blooms of these, so I came through and I sprayed this with some BT, and I'm sure that's going to take care of it. Not that it really matters, because the real prize is under the ground when we harvest these. So I'm going to be looking in a number of weeks to see if I have any yellowing or any flopping, and then that's going to let me know that they're ready to be harvested. Probably in about 2 weeks time, maybe 3 tops. These green beans are great. They're full of bloom, so in a matter of time we'll have some really nice green beans. I have this really pretty variety of pentas. It's got different colors in the same container. I'm probably going to use that with my pots that I have over there with the lantana, kind of do a combination pot there. But guys, look at this. This is so pretty. So this is my latest project right here, and like I said, I'm really, really happy with the way it turned out. These obelisks really look nice. I have my cucumbers on either side that Ben had recently planted. Those were from seed. And then my containers, the collection of containers really do work well together. I have some sage in there, some Italian oregano. I have this really nice variety of rosemary. I have some really pretty French lavender right there, and this is probably my second favorite variety there. It has done very well since I planted it in its container. And I let these dry out because all of these Mediterranean style plants really do well when you let them dry out, and they've really responded well to that. I should probably come by to this geranium and cut some of these, or deadhead some of these off of here, because
That's just going to encourage new growth. Just do that really quick. And before long, we'll have more of that beautiful show of red color. There we go. Already it looks better. Look at that. Perfect. I'll come by and clean that later. But yeah, great collection right there. And this, guys, this is full of pollinators. I've seen bees and butterflies on my heliotrope. Right now there's a bee on there right now working the heliotrope. It smells super sweet. I love how that all looks together. This sweet potato vine, which is the tricolor, along with the black cherry supertunia right there, the purple heliotrope, and then the stratosphere white gara just really does make a stunning showpiece above all of the rest of the terracotta that I have here. I didn't think I was going to like that painted container back there. If you haven't seen that video, it was a lot of fun to take an old container and give it an upcycle. But the tallest container is not true terracotta, but it really looks really nice together now that I have it all here. And this, oh my gosh, this sweet potato vine is just absolutely going crazy. Again, it was stressed just not so long ago, but look at this. This is crazy. It's definitely happy and taking over. And I'll probably trim that so it kind of keeps it in check as it hits the bottom. It's way past the bottom right now, actually, but really pretty. And I think just the whole collection looks really, really nice together. So over here in this area, we have a volunteer zinnia, and it has done really well. I didn't have the heart to tear it out since it came back so beautifully. We've had all kinds of pollinators on this. We've had monarch butterflies, we've had bees, we've had different white butterflies. So beautiful to see that. And even hummingbirds, which is interesting to see on a zinnia. I didn't know that they liked them, but they seem to be coming back every night to get some of the nectar that these provide. But if you come over here, you can see all of the bell peppers. Man, these things are loaded. When we planted these, Ben had been watching a video that said that anytime you plant your bell peppers, you're supposed to allow them to grow first. So you want to cut off any kind of fruit that starts to develop while they're small. This way they use most of their energy on developing their size. And then once they get to their full size, then allow the fruit to develop. And one of these plants in the middle here has 13 bell peppers on one plant, which is unbelievable. I don't think we've ever had that. I'm really looking forward to them ripening. I have a black or purple bell pepper in the back. The one in the center here is a yellow and a red in the front. And I want them to ripen because when we get really, really hot, if they're in the full sun, they can burn. So I'm hoping they ripen before we get really hot next month. So we'll see if that happens. But for right now, they are gorgeous. I'm so happy with them. And then guys, how beautiful are these plants together? I am really, really happy. The Benjamin Britten rose is blooming right now. I'll give you a close-up of that. Usually I'm not able to do that because it's in full sun, but hopefully this close-up shows up. I love that really nice magenta color of the blooms. It's kind of like a cabbage rose. This is a David Austin rose. And the only issue that I have with this plant, because obviously it's extremely vigorous, is it's extremely prone to mildew. But I can handle that mildew with the neem oil that I was talking about earlier because it really does handle it. So if you start to see a little bit of mildew, then spray it with just a slight bit of neem oil, and it really does take care of it longer than if I spray with soap and vinegar, which is another remedy that works really well. But I noticed that the neem oil lasts longer, so that's what I've been using lately. We have these beautiful rows here on this side, and we have this one on that side. I recently trimmed those back. These are both different varieties of iceberg. That's the vibrant pink iceberg. This is the burgundy iceberg. But look at the real star of the show right now, guys, are these gorgeous supertunias. The supertunia mini vista plum vein, gorgeous. One of my favorite that I've ever had before. This is probably my favorite mini vista that I've ever grown. I've grown a lot of mini vistas, but this is really, really nice, and it really does stay in its spot. It's gotten quite tall. I'm gonna come through in a couple weeks and maybe give it a little bit of a trim, but this is the end of July and they're still looking like this, which is a win, because you know, every so often our annuals this time of year, they can start to look tired. And if they do, if they get a little bit like leggy, or you notice that they've lost a lot of their leaves, or they just kind of look sickly, don't be afraid to trim them back, because that trim back is exactly what they need to stimulate
the growth that will sustain them through the fall. Right now I don't need to, but if they get to that point, which probably will be in a number of weeks or maybe 2 weeks, I will trim them back and they'll come back beautifully. So the Mini Vista plum vein is really enhanced by the border of that black cherry that I have starting here in between this boxwood and the rose, and it kind of travels in a drift behind right here through this area, and it connects through where this rose is and ends right here. So I have kind of like an arch of the black cherry and I have the book ends of the Mini Vista plum vein. And I really like how that all worked. It seemed like just yesterday Ben and I were planting up this bed, but I have noticed a big difference in weeds simply because they are so dense, which really does inhibit the weeds from growing, but also the mulch that we put down here. Usually we have a big problem with, different types of weeds shooting up. We have a big problem with dandelions. I'll start to have to come through and rip them out, but this season it's been free of that. The only thing that I want to recommend though is make sure that you spray them if you have budworms, because you can't have blooms like this if budworms take hold. So this is really, really a good example of preventative spraying that has allowed the blooms to really kind of take hold and really, really shine in this area. I love this spot of the yard. What a win this was. And if we look this way, it's really nice to see the whole space, the raised beds with the super bells in that vertical gardening hack that we did earlier this season, and the raised beds in the really, really pretty vibrant color that every bloom brings to the yard. All right, so on this side, we have some really nice romaine lettuce that Ben started from seed, and it looks beautiful. I love that chartreuse color. And then we have 2 plants over here. This is the Garden Gem variety of Proven Winners tomatoes. Such a vigorous and prolific plant. It's kind of like a Roma tomato, producing all through the season constantly. It's an indeterminate variety, so it's constantly blooming and putting on fruit, and we can't wait to have that in the near future. But I just love how this looks, and every time we plant lettuce, it looks so nice. It's almost like a really beautiful landscape technique where it just really does shine. And if we show you a close-up of how beautiful that chartreuse color is with all the blooms behind, I think you're going to agree. It just really does look nice. It's always hard to come by and take it out, but it is fantastic in salad. So we definitely want to get the best out of our garden, and if we can produce our own fruit, it's a win, especially organically grown produce like this. This is going to be great to see. All right, and now our dwarf Meyer lemon is putting on all kinds of fruit. It's been loaded with blooms. We've had hummingbirds that have been going crazy, bees, and so it's pollinated beautifully. And by next season, it's going to be just completely loaded. I gave it a trim back to allow for some airflow down below. If I don't give it a trim every year and kind of thin it out a little bit, I notice I start to have an issue with whiteflies, and that's because it's not getting the airflow that it needs to really kind of like enhance the growth of what it's trying to put on fruit-wise. Anyways, so lots of really cool new fruit. We have a little bit of left from this season, but I'm going to have to come through and pick that shortly. But anyways, let's go over to the other side near the garage. I have a couple more things to show you, and you're going to be blown away with how these tier containers have turned out. Let's go. I think I'm saving the best for last. I mean, look at this part of our yard, and again, mirroring the colors of the back bed in this space really has been a win. I love it. These tiered containers have really taken off in a way that I could have never imagined. These 2 colors together look really nice. The plum veined along with the black cherry, and then the Angelonia, perfect. I probably would do this again. And if I did, the way I planted these was I didn't put the Angelonia directly in the middle. So on these 2 top ones, the Angelonia is kind of being pushed over the side, kind of trailing over the back there. If I probably put it in the center, maybe I would have had some of that height right there. But I was thinking, since we're going to view these from the front, I was going to put that height at the back of the container. But I think next time I'd probably put it in the center, because then I'd see more of that growth. The only reason why this one is able to be seen more than those is because I only have 2 petunias in this front small one in comparison to 3 on these 2 containers right here. So look at that, guys. Isn't that beautiful? So I have the container in the back that Ella had planted up earlier this season. It's so pretty with the Daybreak Charm in the center along with the Royal Velvet petunias there. I have that double smitten pink on that side, so pretty. That thing has just been blooming and blooming and blooming, and I love how compact that is. I love things with dense, compact growth habits. I love that because it really does, when it's full of bloom, shine in this space. And then when you pan back and you see all of this, just all of those colors just look really, really fantastic together. I like the height of the tiered containers, and I would probably do this again next year. I don't know, one of my favorites. I've done a lot of things in this spot, but this is probably at the top. Oh, and we already have a butterfly coming in right now. That's cool. Look at that. All right. Oh, so I had to trim this back a couple of weeks ago, and this is the Super Tunia Mini Vista Indigo. I also have some of that sparkling amethyst in here, along with the double amber super bells, and they're all coming back, and before long this is going to be full. I already have blooms, and that's what I say. It got really leggy, kind of ugly, so I cut it up to the top, and it was just kind of like a trial thing, and it seems to be doing just fine. And then my tower boxwoods that I have planted on either side, we'll just focus on this one. The other one's looking great too. The dianthus, doing great. I came through and made sure to deadhead all of the spent blooms, watering this only once a week, making sure to check the ground to make sure if I have moisture in there, I'm not watering it more than I need to, because that dianthus really does like to dry out, kind of like the super bells. So no overwatering in this pot, and that's why it works so well, because I don't have any of my drip irrigation watering in this spot, because it would be too much, because these need way more water than these do. And so it's kind of like a low maintenance solution to these containers. Anyways, let's walk over here really quick and talk about some other things that I forgot to mention. And we have my Sunflare Rose here doing really well, kind of starting to push its new growth, and before long that's going to be beautiful. But then I have this container. This is the other one that I did a number of weeks ago when I thrifted my container from that thrift store. This is planted in that barbecue. The really nice Calibrachoa is blooming really well, and then also my two different varieties of snapdragons are doing great too, and it looks really, really nice. I did get a little bit of a budworm issue on this, because this is in an area that I don't see very often, because I had to move this because we were going on vacation and I want to make sure to hook it up to drip, because in the area where I had it before, it didn't have access to it, so I moved it so I could easily put one of those lines in here to take care of it while we were gone, and it's kind of stayed here, and then I forgot it was here, so I didn't spray it. And so guess what happened? A lot of my blooms, they disappeared because I had a budworm issue, but they're coming back and it's fine. And I think we're going to do just fine. I think it's going to last probably through the fall, which will be really great to see. And here's another view of that double smitten. Isn't that really pretty? So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed a look at our garden this year. I know that it's been a long time since I've done a full garden tour, but we had so much blooming. I wanted to make sure to get all of my planting done first, and then give you a whole giant overview of how everything is doing. And I really hope you enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. And we hope to see you in our next video, which I have a new project coming up very soon. Until then, everybody, let me know what you thought your favorite thing was in our yard and what you have growing in your yard. I love to hear what everybody's doing. Until then, take care, everybody. Bye.